Welcome to Myth and Culture, Ancient Greek Edition, where you will learn about the mythologies and the society of the people of ancient Greece. Specifically, you will find out how the gods, heroes, and other characters present in Greek mythology and tragedy reflect specific cultural and societal characteristics of Greek society, such as the polis and the accompanying danger of hubris, the value of the oikos, and the importance of xenia. Hubris and polis. Hubris is the sin of pride, where someone believes that he or she can be like a god and above the natural order, just as gods were. It is the opposite of two beloved Greek virtues, eidos, a humble reverence for the law, and sophrosine, self-restraint or a sense of proper limits. Polis is the Greek word for city. The polis was how several settlements in ancient Greece, like Athens and Sparta, operated, with a system of laws and social order that all citizens were expected to adhere to. Everyone must obey the laws of the polis, which embodies those two virtues that I just mentioned. If hubris violates those virtues, then it is public enemy number one in the polis. You cannot allow people to break the laws, ignore their inherent social class, etc. That would disrupt the peace and order. Now, here is how the Greeks criminalized hubris in their mythology. Most of these myths we have actually covered in class, so I only go over them briefly. Phaethon is the son of Apollo, who wanted to imitate his father by driving the sun chariot for the day. He ended up scorching and freezing the earth by flying too close to the earth and then too far above it, losing control of the chariot and crashing in a ball of flames and dying horribly. This is a pretty clear example why you should never try to assume the role of a god. Man cannot be a god, and thus man must stay within the order of the polis. Icarus is the son of Daedalus, who flew too close to the sun during their escape from Crete. The wax on his artificial wings melted, and he fell to a watery demise. Icarus tries to fly up to the heavens, to the realm of the gods, symbolically trying to be like them. However, humans are not meant to have unlimited freedom like that. Another point against hubris. Oedipus Rex is known for his Oedipal complex, which we've learned about, but he is also a prime example of hubris. Hearing the oracle's prophecy that he would murder his father and marry his mother, he thinks he can outsmart the oracle by leaving his mother and father, who are actually not his real mother and father. Eventually, the oracle's prophecy becomes true, again showing that you can never escape the social order or the way things are designed in Greek life. Which brings us to the point of the oracles themselves. The Greeks actually worshipped and believed in these oracles throughout the land. The Delphic oracle of Apollo, the grove of Dodona, sacred to Zeus, and the cave of Trophonius. They're not merely mythological. As you can see, these are real places that the Greeks created. Oracles were believed to be the voice of the gods who dictated what should happen in the mortal realm. They are thus a symbol of the order of the polis. Also, one must never, ever try to outsmart the oracle. You'll never end well, just as hubristically trying to defy the structure of the polis will never end well. We just covered Oedipus, a prime example of this, but Acrisius is another good example. Acrisius heard a prophecy that his grandson would be the cause of his death. Logically, then, he locked his daughter Danae in the tower so she'd never be with child, and then threw her into the sea within a chest, when she became pregnant by Zeus in the form of a shower of gold. Nevertheless, Danae is rescued and gives birth to Acrisius' grandson Perseus, who later grows up to kill Acrisius on accident with a discus. Never, ever try to defy the oracle, or the polis for that matter. Now to Xenia, which is the sacred guest-host relationship in ancient Greece. Xenia dictated all guest-host affairs, requiring that both host and guest treat each other in a respectful and welcoming way, whether or not they were old friends or new strangers. Thus, it was a way of conducting all of one's actions toward others. It is how you must treat everyone in the ancient Greek society. The Xenia bond was so important that their main god Zeus became the overseer of it, as seen in this name for him, Zeus Xenias. Xenia is extreme to the point that a Greek host should earnestly want for and hope for guests. The Greeks reinforced the importance of Xenia in their mythology as well. In the Odyssey, there are myriad examples of Xenia. It was how Odysseus got around, relying on the Xenia shown to him by the foreign courts for food and shelter. However, back in Ithaca, Penelope and the suitors are a prime example of this guest-host relationship. While Penelope maintained Xenia, not refusing them for 20 years, the suitors absolutely annihilated, abusing their gracious host like leeches, taking Penelope's food and wine, and overall being a great nuisance to the queen. For Penelope's adherence to the bond, she gets back her husband alive after many, many years of waiting. For the suitors' insolence, they are all slaughtered when Odysseus returns home. The lesson here, be good guests. The story of Baucis and Philemon demonstrates another concept related to Xenia, which is theoxenia, or theoxany. This is when a strange guest turns out to be a god in disguise. In Baucis and Philemon's case, two strange men who they welcome into their home turn out to be the gods Zeus and Hermes, who have been rejected by the rest of the town. For welcoming them in and properly obeying the customs of Xenia, the two become priest and priestess of a magnificent temple and receive their wish to die together. The rest of the town is razed and smote because they have broken Xenia. The lesson here, treat all your guests as if they could be gods. That is the full extent of Xenia. The Trojan War, a war of massive scale and bloodshed, was also caused by a violation of Xenia. Paris travels to Sparta and is welcomed into the court of King Menelaus and the famous Queen Helen, as per the customs of Xenia. Little does Menelaus know that Paris plans to abduct Helen. Menelaus's most prized possession was the most beautiful woman in the ancient world, because wives were considered property in ancient Greece. Not only does Paris take Helen, but he also steals a good deal of Menelaus's other valuable possessions, breaking the Xenia bond. What results is the horror and grand murder of the Trojan War, which brought about the end of Paris's home of Troy, the death or enslavement of most of his family, and his own death. What a warning about being a good guest. Finally, the oikos. The oikos is the Greek word for family or household. This would include the parents and children related by blood, and also the slaves that belonged to the household. And the relationships between the members of the household were vital to Greek life. A husband must cooperate with his wife. A parent must love his or her child. Siblings must get along passively, etc. Before the polis and allegiance to the city and its laws became the focus, Greeks emphasized the domestic and private life heavily. The oikos could also extend to other households or people through the Xenia bond, meaning that the same focus on maintaining a quality relationship with another member of the oikos, even if he or she was a foreigner, is found in Xenia. The oikos is often a subject of Greek myth and tragedy as well. Here, we look at the family tree of the house, or the oikos, of Atreus, which had several curses afflicted on it because of how they destroyed the relationships of the oikos. First, we begin with Tantalus, who is known for feeding his son Pelops to the gods to test their immortality. This is obviously not what a loving father does to his son, so the oikos is fractured here. Tantalus is punished accordingly in the underworld, seated in a pool of water and under a fruit tree, but unable to eat or drink, starving for eternity. This is also an example of hubris, as Tantalus tries to test the gods with this trick. Pelops, his son, is no better. He, in order to win a woman named Hippodamia, set it up so that her father Oenomaus would die in his chariot race against him to win Hippodamia. He disrupts the father-daughter relationship, and he also breaks a vow by killing Myrtilus, Oenomaus' groom, who sabotaged the chariot to kill Oenomaus, instead of giving him half the kingdom as promised. Pelops is then cursed by Myrtilus, who calls down the wrath of Hermes to mess things up for Pelops and the rest of his household. Pelops' sons, Atreus and Thyestes, also disrupt the Oikos. As brothers, they fight over the right to become king after Pelops dies. Thyestes ends up seducing Atreus' wife Arope in order to become king, but Atreus ends up becoming king anyway. After becoming king, he kills some of Thyestes' children and feeds them to Thyestes in a stew. He also kills his wife Arope. Great guy, really. He ruins relationships with his brothers, his nephews, and his wife. And he is also cursed by Thyestes, and this is the signature curse on the house of Atreus that will cause so many problems in the future. Thyestes ends up raping his daughter Penelope on accident because of an oracle's prophecy, and she gives birth to Aegisthus, who is exposed on a mountainside to die. Father-daughter relationship again ruined, as well as a mother-son relationship. Aegisthus ends up becoming the adopted son of Atreus, who eventually finds out that Thyestes is his real dad and ends up killing Atreus, leaving Thyestes as king of Mycenae. Atreus' son Agamemnon and Menelaus end up deposing Thyestes, and Agamemnon finally becomes king of Mycenae. Notice how Atreus, Thyestes, Agamemnon, Menelaus, and Aegisthus all forgo the oikos for some form of power in the context of the polis of Mycenae. Here is where the conflict between oikos and polis comes up. But the curse doesn't stop there, with this already extremely effed up oikos. No, there's more. Agamemnon ends up sacrificing his daughter, Iphigenia, in order to make the winds blow for the Greeks to sail off to Troy for the Trojan War. Not really a reason to sacrifice your daughter. Also know that the reasons the winds weren't blowing in the first place is because Agamemnon had claimed to be a better hunter than the goddess Artemis after killing a stag in her sacred grove. So he also has some pretty big hubris problems. The curse continues in a story called the Oresteia, a tragedy written by the Greek tragedian Aeschylus, but the story is also covered by Sophocles and Euripides, two other very famous Greek tragedians. Clytemnestra, his wife, in revenge for killing their daughter, murders him when he returns home from the war with the help of her new lover, Aegisthus, who you remember from the last slide as the son of Thyestes and another member of the cursed house of Atreus. Orestes and Electra, Clytemnestra's two remaining children, are exiled by Aegisthus. They in turn murder both Aegisthus, their second cousin of sorts, and Clytemnestra, their very own mother. As my podcaster Liv Albert says in one of her episodes about the Oresteia, there's no right answer. No one who's righteous here. It's just death, murder, family members killing family members. And Orestes and Electra, for killing their mother, are tormented by the Furies in horrible sickness. As you can hopefully see, this oikos is completely shattered and destroyed, and all of the members of the oikos suffered for what they did to disrupt it. Also note that this oikos was cursed several times. This is what a doomed oikos looks like, with much hyperbole for dramatic effect. In summary, don't be like the house of Atreus. You will be doomed, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the relationships within the oikos in Greek society. Now, there's been a gross amount of simplification of myths in this presentation, even though it may not seem like it. They're covered in full by my main source for all the mythology in this presentation, a podcast called Let's Talk About Myths, Baby by Liv Albert, which I've been listening to for about 2 years. The episodes on screen are some of the main ones relevant to the presentation, but I undoubtedly used information from many others. If you're interested, definitely give it a listen. Finally, here are some of the other sources that I have used, and we are done. Thank you very much.